Blake, welcome to our virtual interview and congratulations on being named a distinguished engineer for the Whitaker College of Engineering here at Texas Tech. And it's certainly an honor to be able to interview you and get a little bit about your story, about your career at Texas Tech. So earlier on, I was had another virtual interview with David Harkins, and I thought that he would certainly be, or he and his wife, which she's also a DE, would be the winning couple as far as meeting the earliest. But you met your wife in the sixth grade, so I think you definitely beat poor David out for earliest husband-wife team to come to Tech. So I'll let you tell the story about how you ended up getting to Tech and meeting your wife.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Watson. And certainly it is an honor to be recognized by the College of Engineering. You know, it's not something you ever planned for, but I certainly appreciate the recognition. You are right. I did meet my wife in the sixth grade when we moved to the same neighborhood in San Antonio, and we actually started dating seriously. I think she was 13 years old and I was 14, and we've been married for 39 years now. So
I laugh at that because these kids today, they don't get serious until they're 30 years old.
I know. So, her mother took a shine to me pretty good. And whenever we would have a fight and I would leave, her mother say, "What did you do to him?" So I guess I'm lucky in that regard. So I had her on my side to make it that far. But so I graduated from high school in 1978 and came to Texas Tech. But the journey was really one of searching for what schools do I want to go to. I didn't want to go to UT in Austin because I'm from San Antonio. That's like moving next door. Wasn't far enough away, and I didn't really cherish the idea of going to Texas A&M because I just didn't want the label of Aggie for the rest of my life. That was not something that appealed to me. I did look at SMU for a bit, but my junior year in high school, I think it was Texas Tech or Southwest Conference football championship, so that brought them to my attention, and so made a trip up here and really just fell in love with the campus. And to be quite honest, my wife independently chose Texas Tech as well, so we both came to school here in '78 and both graduated in 1982.
Fantastic. And then while you were here, tell us about your ME class under Powers. I thought that was a great story of how you had to write out a narrative of the problem, and that I think it's great because I think that it makes the student really understand the problem as opposed to plug and chug.
That's true. At the time, I didn't think it was such a great idea. Excuse me, but looking back on it, it was incredible training. Mr. Powers, this was the day before really copy machines were present. Everything was on a mimeograph, a sheet of paper, and we would come in, and every day at class, he would go to the same person at the front of the row and hand them the homework problem for the next day and the graded homework for the prior day. And it was always a mimeograph sheet of paper that had a problem statement with maybe a picture on the front. And, you would have to go and work that problem in ink, even all your calculations and everything else. And I laugh because me and my two friends that we worked on these stuff together. It was our own little study group, Scott Fanning and Dan Fleeman. We said we took liquid paper to a whole new level at correcting our mistakes in ink. But when you got all done solving the problem, you weren't finished because you had to write a narrative summary explaining how you solved the problem, which, his view was anybody can do the math, but if you can't explain it, nobody can understand it. And none of that, if you misspelled the word, you got 10% off. So you immediately got, spelling counted. So it was almost an English class as well. So, it was really good training to create the discipline going forward.
Well, you had a party at the end of the semester to celebrate that, I think.
We did. That was probably one of the funnest things we ever did. There was 2 semesters of that machine design class. And me and Scott and Dan decided that we wanted to have a party, and we got to the end to celebrate making it through those classes. And so we actually made a problem statement just like Mr. Powers would do, and it was a bucket with a keg of beer and ice and some engineers with cups, and the problem statement went something like a 16-gallon keg of beer is floating in a water and ice mixture, and 30 engineers surround the keg with 12-ounce cylinder containers and drink at this rate, determine the rate of float of the keg. And that was the party invitation. And so we actually planted, one of the guys went and sat in that first seat. So when Mr. Powers handed out the homework and the graded homework and homework for the next day, we pulled out the invitation and passed that through in both classes. And we did have a big party, and probably drank too much beer, because at the end of the day, we decided we could go ahead and work that problem. And so we did work it in ink and wrote a narrative summary, and somebody turned it in to Mr. Powers, and like a week later it showed up on the board outside, graded Mr. Powers, and he just said, I think you missed a few elements here, perhaps the beer got in the way. So
Of course, you're much more sophisticated now. You've gone from beer to wine.
that's true. That's true. That's true.
Tell us a little bit about your international experience moving to Singapore.
Yeah, certainly. So so I went to work at Dril-Quip in 1988. The oil industry was coming out of a downturn, much like the downturn we're in today. And so I spent 13 years or so doing R&D, engineering, new product development. And in 2001, I got the opportunity, or offered the job, to be the general manager of Dril-Quip Asia Pacific, which is in Singapore. Having no managerial or business running experience, but they gave me the opportunity anyway. And so we took it. And when I left, they said, look, we're going to give you a 3-year contract, but you're going to be back in 2 years. And that ended up being a 10-year journey overseas, which was absolutely incredible for me and for my family. We ultimately spent 8 years in Singapore and 2 years in Aberdeen, Scotland. I do have to give credit to my wife. She was a trooper. The stints in Singapore and Scotland were not continuous, and so she moved 6 times in 12 years, and 4 of those moves were international moves. So we were frequently moving, but just an incredible experience, learning about different cultures. And really the big takeaway that my kids actually got, which was what I wanted them to get, was, when you go someplace new, it's not wrong, it's just different, right? You don't drive on the wrong side of the road, they drive on a different side of the road. And when you get there, you understand why culturally those things are there. And I just think that's great to have that more global view.
Right, it's nothing you really can teach in a classroom.
That's true, and one of the things, I'm not sure that engineering classes teach you how to run a business, but what I'm thankful for what I got taught at Texas Tech was I got a toolbox full of tools, right? And I learned quickly that I could apply those tools to problems that were not engineering related. They could be human resource related. It could be sales administration, a manufacturing problem. The ability to sit and think about, here's what I know, and here's what I want to know. What do I need to know? What do I have to do to get to the answer that I want? Has served me well. And I just think that's a great testament to the education that I got at Texas Tech.
Well, tell us, switching gears just a little bit, tell us about those wine casts in the background there. And involvement
yeah, so, my wife and I have had many passions in life. And quite frankly, while we were in Singapore, sailing was one of those passions. We sailed a lot, not only around Singapore, but twice sailed from Singapore up through the Malacca Straits into Malaysia and Langkawi, and all the way up into Phuket, Thailand. And as we were ending our time in Singapore, we took an anniversary trip to Australia for our 30th anniversary. And we had grown very fond of Australian wines and really enjoyed those. That was what was readily available in Singapore. And we went into a winery called Cape Grace in Western Australia. It's in the Margaret River region. And as we pulled in, I just remarked to Karen how the property there looked very much like our property in Burnet, Texas, which we already owned. And she agreed. And then we went in and we happened to meet the owners of the winery. Ended up spending 4 hours there chatting with them. Very nice couple. And if you ever go to Cape Grace, they will know that there's a winery in Texas that was inspired by them. And when we left there, we said, hey, we could do that in our property in Burnet. And really, we started that process in mid-year 2011 by doing research, and actually started working on the land in 2012. Spent 2 years prepping the vineyard, planted our vines in 14, and the winery opened in September of 2015. And actually, this coming Saturday is our 5th anniversary party. So we've been up and operating for 5 years. So what you see behind you there, that is actually our barrel room. Those are red wine barrels, mostly French oak barrels. I think there's about 123 barrels in there right now. And each barrel holds about 300 bottles of wine. So you can quickly figure out that there's about 34,000 bottles of wine sitting in there.
Wow. And what type of red wine do you?
So we grow on site. We got 3 acres of vineyard. We grow Syrah, which is about 50% of the vineyard. Malbec is about 40%. And then we have a real small block of Petite Syrah that's about 10% of the vineyard. And the Petite Syrah we blend with the Syrah. It just adds a little body and structure. Unless it's really good. And in 2019, we got what we thought was an exceptional crop of Petite Syrah. So we've kept it separate that whole time. And we'll decide later this year or the first part of next year, do we want to make a reserve estate Petite Syrah if it's really good. If not, we'll blend it with the Syrah and move on. But yeah, and then we buy a lot of fruit from the High Plains. So about 20% or so of our grapes come from our property here. The rest comes from the High Plains out in Meta and those places out there, out near Brownfield. And we get a lot of Italian varietals, to be honest, from there. Montepulciano, Dolcetto, Sangiovese, those things. So we do a lot of Italian and Rhone varietals here.
Well, Blake, you're a true Texas Tech success story. You've gone from beer kegs to wine kegs. I guess you call them barrels, wine barrels. See, I'm not very sophisticated, so I wouldn't know those things. So, but again, congratulations on this honor. And is there anybody you would like to acknowledge?
Certainly, I have to be very mindful of. I am where I am from what my parents have done for me. They paid for my education. I am a first-generation college graduate, and my father passed many years ago, but my mother is 85 and she's still alive, Suzanne Coon, and so I want to thank her for her support. And I want to thank my wife of 39 years who supported me when we were in all the overseas moves. She now runs the winery. So when we got back, she took a viticulture certificate program through Texas Tech, and she actually runs this business. I say I'm the CEO, of the winery, which means I'm head of cleaning, electrical, and other. So those are my jobs. But I want to thank her for all her support and as we've moved all around the world.
Thank you, Blake. Thank you very much for coming, and appreciate what you do very much.
Thank you, Marshall. Appreciate it.